Good evening, everyone. My name's Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. So thrilled to have you here for opening weekend of Burden. At this time, please join me in welcoming some of the artists who made this film possible. Please welcome writer-director Andrew Heckler and stars Austin Hebert and Crystal Fox. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
The cast is here. Oh, here they are.
There they come.
Don't mind my business.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Congratulations on a beautiful movie. This film actually won the Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival 2 years ago. I know you spent 20 years getting it made. How does it feel to be here in the theater on opening weekend, finally seeing it with an audience?
It's pretty surreal, actually. I have to say, you know, we started this journey, about 20-something years ago, and my life is vastly different than it was back then, and so it's pretty amazing to be, here in the theater with an audience watching the movie.
I would love to start at the beginning, actually, because I think most people know you as an actor. Had you always wanted to write and direct? This is your directorial debut.
It is. It's probably not enough people knew me as an actor. That's probably the problem. But first I'd like to thank you all for coming out.
Yay.
I really appreciate it. Got a lot of sort of friends and family here tonight, so I appreciate them for coming. This is my directorial debut. We had a theater company back in New York. In fact, Scott is here tonight. He was part of my theater company in New York years ago, and we wrote, we directed, we acted. We were constantly doing everything, and so it was somewhat of a natural progression. When I first heard this story in a blurb in a newspaper in 1996, and it said, Klansman opens redneck shop and KKK museum in a small southern town, which I just thought was sort of incredible in 1996. And then I put it in my folder of things to get back to, and before I could, I read another article in 1997, and it said, Klansman sells redneck shop and KKK museum to Black Baptist minister.
Wow.
And so I thought to myself, what the heck is going on in this town? And so I picked up the phone, I called the Reverend, and I said, I'd like to come down here and check it out. And he said, well, it's a free country. And I came down there, and I spent about 10 days in the church, and getting to know these people and getting to see who they were and what was going on down there and getting to know the town. And, once you meet these people, once you meet these wonderful people, you just feel obligated to tell their story. And I figured to myself, honestly, that if I'm going to tell a story about a family built on hate and a Klansman, who leaves that family, I better get to know the Klan. So I called up the redneck shop and I said, I'm a white supremacist from Colorado, and I'm driving cross country, and
Wow.
I'm on my way to Hilton Head. Can I stop by? I've heard so much about the store. And they said, sure. And so I came and I spent the whole day with them, and as much as it was completely a violation of my own personal beliefs and everything that I hold sacred, I figured I had to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get to know these guys, and what I always say is, lo and behold, I took the hood off the Klansman, and wow, there was a person underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's probably where your skill as an actor came in, too.
yeah, it was. It's pretty dicey. I spent a lot of time sort of as a Klansman in and around Lawrence, South Carolina, and getting to know the guys and going to places they hung out, and it was pretty intense. But at the end of the day, I realized that there were people. They're people. They fall in love. They have children. They eat lunch. And the only way we can affect change on anybody is by realizing who they are and what they're doing. And so, no one came out of the womb in a robe and or a Nazi outfit. We teach that, and so anything that can be taught can be untaught.
You talk about seeing these articles. Sure, I'm not going to stop you. Seeing these articles a year apart, and it is such a crazy story. It almost has to be true. And I'm curious for the actors. When did you first hear of the story? I don't know if it was you got the script and you read it, and did you know it was a true story?
Well, we knew it once you got the script,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know of it before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what interested me, is to tell somebody else's story, but that it wasn't the truth. I thought it was an amazing, crazy reality. I was like, that really happened? Wow, and why don't we know about it?
Yeah, exactly. there's so many things I see that I'm like, that should be a movie, and you actually went and did it, so congratulations. What was sort of your response when you read the script, and what attracted you to the project?
Okay.
I just got done doing a film called Detroit, which was another heavy racial piece, and so I got the script and I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I could jump into it, but it just reached out to me. So it was just so visceral and had so much heart into it that I was like, let me go try. And so I literally hopped off the plane and then read for Andrew like the day after that I'd got done. And it just, I don't know, I just felt like when I read the role, I was like, I just felt like there's something I could maybe bring to it. And I just knew also from maybe doing it from the past, I just knew the what this film could do. So it seemed like a good challenge, and I want to be a part of it.
Were you at all able to meet any of the real life counterparts? Like, well, probably the Reverend, I'm guessing.
Well, I got to meet the Reverend, which was awesome, but I didn't get to meet his wife, who I played, until yesterday.
You're kidding?
No, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
fun. It was wonderful. I did get to talk to her over the phone because when I met the Reverend, I saw him from across. We were near the baptism scene, and he's with Forest Whitaker, and I'm looking at him like, oh my God, there he is. And he was saying, oh my God, there she is. And I was so moved by the fact that he came over and told me that his wife let him know who was cast to play her. So I thought that was interesting. So we called her, and I spoke to her over the phone.
Oh, wow.
And she's a lot more reserved than I thought, and she's a little shy. But to me, she's like an unsung hero behind the man
Yeah.
whose heart is huge as it was. But to hold down her family and, forgive me for saying it, but allow that to happen. She was holding a space not only for her husband, but for the possibility and for their family.
And how involved during the process, obviously, but especially the shoot, were the Reverend and Mike Burden, for that matter?
So we made a point of meeting everybody. So, Forrest went up and met with the Reverend and the whole congregation and Jan and everybody else and spent some time with them. I had met Garrett Hedlund, and we literally met at an airport, and I took him to see Mike Burden.
Wow.
And so we spent 2 days with Mike. And what was amazing is, Mike couldn't have been friendlier. Mike and his wife, his new wife, they couldn't have been more friendly or welcoming or ingratiating to us, and it was eye-opening. And Mike has changed, completely changed. And then we took Judy, Andrea Riseborough, who landed, and I took her to see Judy, and literally Andrea pretty much inhaled Judy and became her. Mm-hmm. It was somewhat miraculous. And there's scenes in the movie where it really doesn't seem like Garrett at all, or Andrea at all. Well, Andrea never. I mean, Andrea became Judy, and she was Judy on the set. And people would say to me, how do you get along? And I said, I get along great with Andrea Riseborough. Judy gives me a lot of problems on the set, though. But it was true, and they were involved. I mean, it was a 20-year journey. So along the way, I got a lot of stuff, a lot of gold from the Reverend. I got a lot of gold from Clarence. His real name is Clarence Simpson, and the character that Usher plays is loosely based on him. I rode around with that guy forever, getting sort of the grays between the blacks and the whites. I never wanted to make a superhero movie with good and evil. I wanted to make a movie about people. Mm-hmm. So it was really important for me to spend that time and get to know the little stories that were going on down there and how they viewed race and how they dealt with it on the ground. And when he says, I'm here on the ground, that comes from those guys telling me that. So it was pretty wild, but yeah, they were involved the whole way.
You have such an amazing cast. I mean, you mentioned some of them, but like every role is filled so beautifully. I'm sort of curious what it was like to act opposite Garrett when he's, so immersed in a character and getting to, play Forest Whitaker's wife. Well, not Forest Whitaker's wife, the Reverend's wife.
Forest Whitaker's.
Yeah.
Both.
But you're sharing scenes with Forest
Absolutely,
Whitaker. That's
yes.
got to be pretty amazing.
That was.
Yeah, I think that when you have an actor who's that immersed in that role, it just kind of sets the precedent that you do a film like this, you have a bigger purpose too. And so I think that it just sets the precedent, and it that you immerse yourself and you have to go all in, and it also makes it a bit freeing and safe to like explore whatever you needed to explore. So it made it you were able to go to those places because of actors like that. Yeah.
And you're doing a
No, I agree. But to piggyback off of what Austin just said, Andrew made the environment safe. The intentionality was set. For most of us, I think once we read the script, while we wanted to be there, we were set on telling a story. Once you meet him and you see where the heart was, and that's what he meant to have happen, he creates a safe space, which you have to build on hate and love relationships. Hard to do. But if you come in knowing we see the value and the importance of this story, plus it was somebody's life, not made up, you can, not comfortably, you can do your work.
Was it a difficult shoot? Because, I mean, just looking at the logistics, it's a period piece. You have a pretty large ensemble cast. It's an independent movie, so I'm guessing you're working on a budget and probably limited shooting days. Plus, you're dealing with, obviously, some heavy material. Were you able to have levity on the set, or was it pretty tough?
We had a hell of a good time making a really tough movie.
Good.
I have to say that, you know, what these guys aren't saying, when you shoot an independent movie, you don't shoot it in order. And so we had Forest Whitaker for 3 weeks, and we had, you know, Tom Wilkinson for 3 weeks, and that's all we got from them. So the first 2 weeks was mostly the African-American scenes. The last 2 weeks were the Klan scenes, and then there was the crossover week at the Redneck Shop and everywhere else. And it was wild what happened, because these guys came to the set, and they created this family out of love, and they just laughed and joked and had a great time, and they created the bond. And Dexter, who plays the Reverend's son, was amazing, and it was just like watching this family. I sort of got out of the way and let them improv and had a good time, and then the Klan guys showed up. And they equally had a good time, except it was such a different kind of humor and a really different kind of laughter. And they were all like teasing each other and like, it was just biting. And I was like, wow, they're just living these parts. And I just had to get out of the way pretty much. You know, I do tell this story a little bit that, you know, it took so long to get there that the day before I left for the movie, my wife, who's also here tonight, she looked at me and she said, look, you cannot control what's going to happen with this thing, and you cannot control if it's going to turn out good or bad, if the movie's going to be whatever. But what you can control is you've been waiting your whole life to do this movie. So go have fun. Enjoy the experience of making the film. Have fun making the movie. And that's what she said to me as she kissed me and said goodbye. And yes, that's my wife. And so the last night, Forest Whitaker's leaving the set, and Forest is always in character, so he's carrying this heaviness with all the time. And so I said, look, you're leaving, you know, Reverend, because we called him Rev. Would you like to have dinner? And I'll make you dinner tonight. It'd be great. He goes, sure. He said, let me see. So I go, and about half an hour before he's supposed to show up, I haven't heard from anything, so I wasn't even home yet. And I get a call from his assistant, and he says, Forrest would love to have dinner with you at your room tonight. He's a vegan, so he'll be there in 25 minutes. Oh, God. I was driving home. So I went to the supermarket, and I'm trying to gather any sort of tofu, or I don't even know it. Like, I didn't know anything about it at all. And I cooked him what I could. And we're sitting there, and now he comes in. He's totally Forest Whitaker. He's young. He's levity. You know, he's light. And we have a great dinner and back and forth. I told him that story about my wife. And he looked and he goes, you sure had fun on this set. He goes, I don't think I've ever seen any director have as much fun as you did.
Really?
And we had a really good time making a really tough movie. We had, Garrett, for all of like the heaviness of the role, I mean, you just had to watch your back, because the guy was constantly taking the piss out of you or doing pranks on you or something. And, we shot the movie. I shot the movie barefoot. That was another thing. We danced a lot. We had a lot of jokes and a lot of levity going on in the middle of this really tough movie. In fact, I'll tell this quick story and then I'll shut up. But the kids are a wild card, and you never know what you're going to get with them. So you just have to make sure they're having a good time and enjoying themselves. So every day on the set, I would tell the two kids, the two boys, I'd say, here's the deal. You do your work today, you do your job, and you get a treat, and then you get to make me do something. And so they love that idea. You know, and they would get an ice cream every day at the end of the movie, at the end of the set. But like on day one, they were like, okay, you know what we're gonna do? Andrew, you've got to run through the sprinklers. So I ran through the sprinklers, and then I had to climb trees, and then I had to get in that lake at the baptism, and then I did all sorts of things with them. But again, that just provided a set that was fun, and in the middle of shooting these scenes that were incredibly tough, we had a good time.
I'm curious if you guys have worked with so many different directors, and directors have their own style, but do you think having a director with an acting background helped? Was there a certain sort of empathy maybe in helping you with these performances?
I think so. I mean, well, he understands actors, but the thing that I love about Andrew is, first of all, that he was passionate about telling this story, which is not easy and it's heavy, but his heart is so light. I came to meet him on the day that he was running through the sprinklers. And Robbie, the producer, the two of them were like brothers and sisters. So I come to the set, they're like, hi, welcome, excuse me for a minute. Does anybody know where he is? He's in there, but can he put on some shoes? I mean, he's insured, so they're worried about him. Jumping through the sprinklers, barefoot, and all of this. And then he comes over and meets me. I loved his childlike heart. But that childlike heart, this was the story he wanted to tell. And I thought the two together, how amazing.
Yeah, I felt like he. Sorry, you can clap at that. I felt like when you walked in, he sets up, because he's an actor. He set up that relationship with us as a cast, because he knew that was, if you didn't have that, you were gonna die. Like, you needed that to do this film, and you could just tell that he really, really cared about each and every character with his heart. So you could really feel safe and feel that from him, and that he had such insight about the characters when he came in. So it felt like a collaborative process in that, and that was really special.
I want to add something. Sorry.
Go ahead. I just got one clap.
Right. Forgive me, because I'm not correcting what he's saying, but me as an actor, I have a tendency when I do something that's heavy or weighted, I live at Six Flags in my head, so I like joy and I like fun. But when I choose something and it has an intensity to it, it feels like, for those of you who don't know what acting is and what it takes for us to do what we do, we had a good time, but there was not, when we say fun, we don't mean like fun that discounted what we had to do. Mm-hmm. We had to have a way to release that. Nobody can sit in the weight of what we had to create every single day. When you did the scenes you had to do, you had to put it somewhere so that we know I'm not that person, you're not that person. But that was established again by how he created the space. Once we knew what we were doing, you're free to trust each other, to do the hard stuff, and you're also free, when we had those breaks, to remember who you were with each other.
I'd even go further than that and say that it wasn't fun sometimes as it was love.
Yeah.
Like, we had to really love each other through those processes, because that's what enabled us to go to those places.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine every movie changes you in some way, but it sounds like this was really a passion project for a lot of people involved, and it probably changed you as a person as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
His career.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to therapy. No, it's such an immersive project that I feel like, I guess I'll just say, like, one of the things that I took out of it, because my story is kind of similar to Andrew's in that I knew nothing about the Klan, so I went there early to try to get as much as I could and talk to the Reverend and Judy about how they saw the Klan. But I feel like I just feel like the biggest thing I got out of the project was how easy it is for hate to give you an identity. And once you have that as an identity, how empowering that can be and dangerous that can be. Mm-hmm. So once I saw that, the effect that could have, I mean, it definitely changes you.
I want to take a couple questions from the audience. If you have one, just raise your hand. Sure, go ahead. Oh, the website shown at the end of the movie, if you want to talk about that.
It's rehabhate.com.
Can you talk a little bit about, you can go there and
Yeah, so I mean, basically, really simply, I really felt indebted to do something for the people of Lawrence, South Carolina, the church, the Reverend, and what they had been through. So we thought of an idea that now that they had control of the space, to take the space and convert it into a center of tolerance, diversity, and love. Which I thought was really ironic. I thought it was sort of a jokey kind of irony, but it is, and it is an amazing irony that the studio got behind the project. Now we have a website where you can donate to the project. All the proceeds from the South Carolina, the opening film of the Charleston Film Festival, all the proceeds from that are going to rehab the shop, and we've got corporate sponsors like Lowe's, and so everybody's chipping in now to rehab that shop, that Klan museum now into a museum of tolerance.
wow, that's great. Sure. Right here?
Andrew, I'm so proud of you, bro. I thought the movie was incredible, and stories like this have the capacity to transform culture. And so I'm just curious, did the making of this and the way it's come out, has it shaped your bandwidth for what you want to do in the future?
Just for those who couldn't hear it, has this shaped the stories you want to tell in the future, I guess?
It's shaped the time frame that I want to tell the stories in the future. I want to tell them much shorter than 20 years. No, but the truth is that, yeah, I mean, you know, the process of this movie, getting to know these people, and you know, we told much lighter stuff. Scott's part of my theater company. This was a planted question. No, I'm just kidding. But we had much lighter things on our mind back then, and I grabbed this story and just kept running with it. And now, like, you know, the next project I want to do is I also went down to West Virginia, Kentucky. I spent a lot of time with people that have been the victims of the real victims of the opioid crisis, and I read another really tough movie that I say it makes Burden look like a romantic comedy. And so it's brutal, but you know, these are the kind of stories that I think that need to be told. I was in Africa. I thought the movie business got silly for me. I quit. So that's the truth. And I went and did a couple things. And one time I was in Africa in a refugee camp, and I saw that they had movie theaters, that they'd set up little movie theaters in the refugee camp, and they were all American movies. And they were all wearing American outfits and American culture and American sports. And I thought, the movie business isn't silly. It's what we're exporting to the world. So we should take it more seriously than we do sometimes, and that's the kind of stories that I want to tell.
Are you up for directing again soon?
Yeah.
All right. So. I saw one. Sure, we'll go right there. You first.
Oh, I never get caught.
It's your lucky day.
Yeah, thanks. I have more of a comment. I'm sorry, but I don't know him, so this isn't planted. But I heard about the film, and when I first learned that the director would be a white male, I was a tad bit skeptical. But looking at the film, I can definitely concur that you being a thespian, I'm also a former thespian turned producer, so I can totally see how empathy played a big part in this, because the people. I'm from a Lawrence, a type of Lawrence city. They're all across the country, but I could totally see the realness of it. I could feel it and touch it. It's there, and I think you captured both communities really well. So I just want to commend you on that. You made a believer out of me, and I can definitely see how you being in theater definitely played. So because thespians, we know people. We invest in character, and I think you nailed it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because it's a real issue. It's a real issue right now. I am a white middle-aged male film director, and I'm being judged on that. I don't see color when I write my characters, and so I try to be very objective about and empathize with both sides. I will say that I've gotten this question a lot, and I'm glad that you're here because I'm going to ask you the question. I've gotten the question a lot, which is, how can you understand the Southern Black experience being who you are? And I can only understand the story that I'm trying to tell and the people. And my answer is this: I can't understand the Southern Black experience. It's impossible for me to do that. So I hired actors who could. And I trusted them with this story to step in their shoes. And I think that what we got here, when you label this movie, I think you're making a mistake, because I think what we got here is a real movie, about people. And so I asked Crystal, I leaned on you to provide my Southern Black experience, and Forrest and Usher, and Devin and all the people and Dexter who played those roles, to bring an understanding that I don't have to my own material.
But you could only buy it as the truth if what you were moved by when you went and lived with those people, you felt from us. We'd still have missed your story if you didn't feel, if we hadn't recreated what you felt. So, what I mean.
What had you been interested in directing things over the years? Was it something about this story that spoke so strongly to you that this had to be the one, or had you never really thought about directing for film?
No, I mean, there was a certain point as an actor, and I'll be brief with this one. Certain point as an actor, I think that sometimes you sit on a set and you go, "Oh, I know how to do that," or "Why aren't you doing it that way?" Or "This is so easy. Why aren't you figuring it out?" And that becomes frustrating as an actor, and you realize, okay, I need to step in a different direction. And sometimes you read scripts and you just sort of go like, well, "That's ridiculous," or "I don't like that," or "Why?" Obviously, you haven't gotten out of your Hollywood studio and you wrote something. Why don't you do something more interesting? And it's the frustration that sort of drives you into another area, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad that you were frustrated, I guess. I want to remind everyone this movie is in theaters now, so please spread the word, let everyone know. Visit the website, Rehab Hate. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Can I ask
Yes, of
another
course.
question? I would like to ask you all something. This night I've been waiting for it, because there's one thing to see it at a screening in Sundance. It's another to watch it with people who were part of making it. I have been curious to know, what did it feel like? Because last night when we saw it, I got to see it in a room full of people that were there to support us. However, it was the first time I was in a room full of mixed races, ages, and everything. And I felt the sense of uncomfortability for all of us at varying times. So I'm curious to know what you feel like tonight. If anybody can tell me or would like to share it, I would like to know.
I would love to speak on that.
Please, where are you?
I'm in the back.
Okay. Oh, hi. I see you.
Like Detroit and Fruitvale Station and all those movies I don't watch because they're very triggering. And I didn't actually expect this one to be as triggering as it was. But I really love this. I did not know about Michael Burden and any of the things that were going on. And actually the thing that tripped me out at the very end was when they said it was in 1996.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Wow.
But the very beginning, like a lot of the Klan stuff was really hard to see. When they peed on that young lady, that was really hard to see. And I lived in Alabama for 13 years. So I didn't experience anything directly because I lived in Huntsville, which is like a very big, engineering town. But it was, like I said, it was triggering, but I really liked at the end. I feel like it had a good movement to make it to the end. I'm hoping that more people see it, because like for me, I know that like movies like Detroit and Fruitvale Station and all those movies are great movies, but it's very hard to watch them as a Black human being who has to still deal with this in 2020.
Do we have a movie coming in here? Should we move this to the bar, or? I assume that there's a movie in this theater.
Maybe not.
Oh, okay. But maybe we can take this to the bar if you guys don't
Thank
mind.
you, because
Yes.
I love knowing.
Yes. Would you like? I think we gotta get out of here. But please join us. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, I stepped in.